Everyone, this is Ben Runo and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a try to keep it short video thoughts on the Surface Pro, the original. This is the 128 gigabyte model right here. And I've been using it for about a month or 2 months, and I really just wanted to give my thoughts on the device because I just sold it. So kind of a spoiler there, but I just like to tell everyone here what I think about it. Let's get into this. So the Surface Pro, what is it? It's basically the guts of a laptop in a tablet form factor, and I'd say that tablet form factor is a very loose definition, but we'll go with that. And what are the proposed benefits? Well, the proposed benefits are that it has a kickstand. These are proposed benefits over tablets. A kickstand, most other tablets don't have kickstands. It also has an optional keyboard, which you can attach, and it makes typing easier. Those are both advantages over tablets. And the advantages over laptops are that it has a more slim and light form factor, a touch screen, and also a Wacom digitizer, which most all laptops don't have. It's mostly in the tablet form factor that you find it. But let's talk about what this device is. So what this device is it's supposed to be the best of both worlds. You're supposed to get the lightness and portability of a tablet form factor with the power and usefulness of a laptop with the keyboard and the kickstand. The problems start to arise when you start to use this device as a tablet. So when you start to use this device as a tablet, it's heavy. Now being heavy wouldn't be so much of a problem if typing wasn't so cumbersome. When you try to type on this device while you're using it, you can use one hand and then use the other hand to do it, but then it gets heavy very quickly. If you're using both hands, the device is very wide, so trying to reach all parts of the keyboard is very awkward. If you're using the pen, you have to keep lifting it up off the screen. There's no swipe mechanism. So when you're trying to use it as a tablet, typing can be very cumbersome. Simple web page manipulation is fine, but just using it as a tablet is really awkward because you've got basically, unless you're reading a book, you're trying to do stuff, trying to type in websites and things like that, and it can get awkward. And then also, while you're trying to do that, this tablet is 2 pounds. Now, the original tablet, the iPad, was about 1.5 pounds, and so is the Surface RT, and both of those are much more manageable. But just adding that little bit of weight and having it be so wide, you have to basically hold up the entire length of this tablet, and it's very awkward, and it can lead to your arm or your hands getting worn out really fast. So it isn't really the best of the tablet world in that sense. And then the laptop world, what it says is, okay, we have this kickstand, we have this keyboard, you can get work done. It's the best of the laptop. Well, the point of a laptop is to be able to use it and have the comfortability of a desktop computer wherever you go. And with a laptop you have that because you can just lift the hinge, laptop's not going anywhere, screen's not going anywhere, keyboard's not going anywhere. You don't have that same sort of assurance with the Surface. When you're trying to use it on your lap, basically, unless you only want to use the device on a desk, it's very bad. Because when you're using it on your lap, it's likely to fall over, it's likely to fall into your lap, it digs, it doesn't feel good because it's heavy. The kickstand will actually dig into your legs. Also, what do you call it? The angle isn't very good, especially on this original. The second one had the second grade kickstand, which made it a lot more useful, but on this one you just have the one angle to look at and you have to put it quite far out. And the tablet's keyboard, it doesn't have any sort of rigidness of its own. Like the keyboard's rigid, but basically the surface that it's on is whatever's under it. So it's your legs, and it's very unstable, and it can wobble, and it's not really the best of the laptop world. And not to mention, I know there's lots of laptops out there with really bad trackpads, but this trackpad on the original Surface type cover is abysmal. Second and third ones are much better, obviously. And then lastly, you got the pen. And the pen is pretty much the only thing that really kept me thinking that this form factor had something to offer. And the pen is magnificent. It's an actual Wacom pen. It's got 1024 points of pressure sensitivity, and when you're drawing on it, it actually feels like you're drawing with a pencil or a pen or a paintbrush or whatever you're doing. It feels exquisite. It feels great. But unfortunately, most applications that are for drawing aren't really work-related, and the ones that are work-related rely on a desktop environment, which is very awkward to use in a tablet form factor. So the pen, it also doesn't really serve much of a useful purpose. It's really just more for fun. And that's the problem, because tablets traditionally, and I believe they will continue to be for a very long time, are generally consumption devices, devices for play. And then laptops are devices for work, devices to get things done fast and efficiently. And the two don't really go well together. It's constantly a clashing of easy and fun and less feature-rich, and also more productivity and more powerful with things like Photoshop and Lightroom and things like that. And in both those instances, this is probably a really big compromise. I'm going to say it's a really big compromise, because when you're using desktop applications, it feels cramped. Clicking on stuff's hard. It's just not very good, and the angle's not very good. It's a very bad experience. And when you're using it as a tablet, it's heavy, it's cumbersome, it's very wide. It's very bad in that sense. So in that way, this compromise works out for basically the worst of the Microsoft Surface. And it's not my favorite of the Surface line. I think the new ones have done a lot to improve it, and I may talk about those in the future, but this, the Surface Pro, is bad in just how it was designed to be a convergent device. This Surface Pro does not do it well at all. So what else is there to talk about this device? There's plenty of other things to talk about this device, but I had to get that out of the way first, because you have to think about that before deciding whether or not to purchase this device. This device, the hardware, from the hardware perspective, it's 2 pounds, too heavy for a tablet. Not really thinking about the weight when I'm using a laptop, because I'm not holding it. So if it's light for a laptop, it doesn't really matter in that sense. The cameras, this did come out back when 720p cameras were standard, so cameras were okay for then. They're horrible now, very grainy and very bad. Speaking of this, I'm using a 720p camera on my laptop, but all joking aside, there's also, what else is there on here? You got a micro SD card slot, display port, the magnetic charging adapter. It's a nice addition, but it comes out really easily, and it's really hard to get in, so that was kind of poorly done. And the speakers are not very good on this tablet. There's a USB port, which is useful, and I think that was a good addition. Also of note is this tablet is thick. I'm trying to think of a thin device I have. Well, I have this Z10 right here, and just for comparison, the Z10 is quite a bit thinner, and pretty much every other tablet that you line up against this, you're going to say, wow, this thing's thick. So it's thick and heavy, and there are some positives, though. The positives are, it does have a Core i5 processor, it does have 4 GB of RAM, it does have a 120 GB solid-state drive, it does have a 1080p screen, which is one of the most beautiful and best screens I've ever seen on a mobile device. It's absolutely fantastic. And the pen is beautiful. The pen works great. Sometimes it has some problems with palm rejection. I really tried to overlook those, but they're there, and you just can't do anything about them. But the pen is great overall, and the charger is really good. The charger, actually, of special note, has a USB port on it so that you can plug in a charger for your phone or your tablet or whatever while you're charging this beast, which, by the way, only lasts 4 hours on a charge, and I found that claim to be very, very optimistic. this thing overwhelmingly died much before then, and if you really want to use the screen to its full potential, you're going to be turning up the brightness, and that's going to tank your battery life, which it does. What else is there to say about this? Mostly how I found myself using this device is I pretty much never used the keyboard, but I did carry it around, which by the way adds about half a pound at the tablet, making it a lot more heavy. And I might have used the keyboard more if I had one of the newer ones, but what do you call it? I carried around with the keyboard, and I'd basically just unlock the device, swipe around, and be like, wow, this is beautiful, and then lock it again. When I was out, I'd find myself most of the time drawing with the Fresh Paint application, and I actually do have some notable drawings on there, which I thought turned out very well, and for that reason I'm looking forward at being able to test one of the newer Surface devices, probably the Surface Pro 3 in the near future. But that was mostly what I found myself doing the most on, was basically just using it to use the Fresh Paint application, because using it as a laptop, told you, very awkward. I wouldn't recommend using it as a laptop. And then using it as a tablet, it's very heavy, and typing is cumbersome, so I wouldn't recommend using it as a tablet. And that covers everything. Overall, I would not recommend this device unless you're an artist who... I've actually seen some people do reviews of this tablet on YouTube who are artists, and they do really appreciate the Wacom pen. And in that situation, I would say buy this tablet. But otherwise, I would say stay away from at least the first generation Surface Pro. I would highly recommend the Surface 2 and the Type Cover 2. The RT version, that tablet is great. I'll talk about that later. And the Surface Pro 3 is even better. But this first generation tablet, it's definitely a Generation 1.0. You can tell from everything about it, and I wouldn't recommend it. Overall, I have to give this device a 5 out of 10. It probably would be much lower if the hardware wasn't so great, but as it sits, I just can't give it a higher score. It's not really a very useful device. It has a lot of uses, but it's in such a bad form factor that I can't really see it being used for much. The newer ones are better because they have 2-stage kickstands, and the keyboard and trackpads are much better, and I will give those a higher score when I do review them, but this first generation device, it does not do it very well. Well, that's about all I have to say about the Surface Pro. I actually just sold it, so I'm going to be shipping it out later this afternoon, but if you guys have any questions or comments about my experiences with the Surface Pro, the original Surface Pro, please drop them in the comments section or send me a private message, and I'd love to answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.